Welcome to episode 390 of the Tilehurst podcast. I'm going to be honest with you. This is a very, very difficult podcast to do. Really, normally I'd give you some sort of intro that I'd written down and thought about, and I tried to chuck in a few jokes. But realistically, where we're at currently is not great at TTE Towers, as you can probably imagine. We're gonna kind of do our best to give you the facts, but also our opinions alongside that, and where we're currently at with everything. We have got a game to review as well. If you didn't join us on our live feed over on YouTube, as the kids say, that is up as a recording that you can go and watch anytime. But we will talk about our trip to the Tough Sheet Stadium, which was literally tough sheet for us. I'm joined, as always, by Ross. Ross, quick question for you first of all.
Sure.
As a Reading fan, if you compartmentalise your life, in terms of football coach, dog owner, proud American Brit or Brit American, and
Sure.
Reading fan, if you had to put an emoji to describe you as a Reading fan currently, what emoji would that be?
Oh, it's a very good question. I like the melting face one. That one's always good, So maybe that one there. I like the ones that light up though and party, and those are kind of they flash lots of different colors very quickly and they dance,
Yeah.
but it's not that kind of week. So I guess I have to stay away from those.
I think if I was going to do it, I'd be, the one that's the moon with like the face, the really dark black moon.
Okay.
I'd be that currently.
Okay.
There's still a glimmer, but it's diminishing at the moment.
Okay. Nice. They have some good little ones with stars in, actually. So yeah, anything from that section, maybe. Good question.
Yeah, that's where we're at as emojis. Quick shout out to ZC Said Films, who are sponsoring this podcast. We're gonna, as I said, we're gonna do our best. We're gonna do our best to address some of your questions. We've got a big fat listeners corner this week. We're going to talk about Tough Sheet Stadium. We're going to talk about
We're just plowing on with listeners corner. All right, nice.
I'm gonna try and make it stick, but it's always going to be the mailbag, isn't it?
All right, cool.
But also we've got, and I just can't even believe I'm saying this in the same sentence, but we've got Ajax and Huddersfield in the space of 5 days at the SCL.
Yep.
So we're going to kind of preview those all to come in episode 390 of your Tilehurst podcast. Join us after this break when we get into the recap against Bolton. Right. The Royals headed up to Lancashire. And I'm going to keep saying Lancashire because it is in Lancashire. It's in the historic county borders of Lancashire.
I was actually surprised when you said this too. I'm just going to put it out there now. Not that you're right. I'm just I've always thought of Bolton as a part of Manchester.
Well, it is Greater Manchester, but it's also in Lancashire. And regardless of what people that like geography or sim think, they can shut up because according to Wikipedia, it is in the historic county borders of Lancashire. So whatever.
The capital city of Rhode Island, which is the state just south of Massachusetts here, is technically part of the greater Boston municipal area, amusingly. So the capital city of another state is within the city area that Boston is. So it's just funny how that works out sometimes. Yeah. Cities and towns are weird things. Anyway.
And sometimes the moral of the story is that geography doesn't make sense. That's pretty much it. Anyway, Bolton is Bolton. We went up to Bolton. I can't even say Bolton anymore, but we got dumped up there. Basically, we got absolutely trounced. And it's a tricky one because, as we said on our was it live feed of street? I don't know what it was. What do the kids call it?
Watch along commentary, whatever you want to call it.
Watch along commentary. Yeah. We said anyone looking at that result will think, we were absolutely smashed to bits on the pitch. And really, Ross, what it was 4 set pieces. You include the corner that they scored from their 5th goal that put paid to what was just a bizarre day all round and capped off a quite horrendous week for the club. I suppose the beauty of doing the pod the way we do it is that we give ourselves at least, 48 hours to kind of process the result. Looking back on Saturday afternoon in Lancashire / Greater Manchester, what's your overriding thoughts on it right now?
it's a hot pot of emotions, split between.
Lancashire hot pot. I love that. I caught it straight away. I just grabbed it and just put it in my pocket.
Liked it. Thank you.
It's good.
What are my emotions on that game? Yeah, it was a really weird one. Because again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Reading, played well enough. Reading played really well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. There were portions of the game where Reading played well for sure. But I think, okay, so something I was saying during I watch a live stream long, whatever. I kept saying was, they're playing pretty well. They're having lots of moments where the players joined up. They're doing things that look good on the field. And with issues with going forward aside, they actually created a reasonable amount in this particular game. But when you've got so many young players playing all together in the lineup, and it's easy to forget how young even players like Mbenge are as senior players, even how young those kinds of guys are. There are going to be mistakes made all over the pitch, and that's kind of what we saw as individual mistakes causing Reading to suffer in key moments. There's a stat in baseball, errors, that isn't really used in football too much, or isn't really referred to. I guess it is certainly with goalkeepers. Obviously with Kenai Boyce Clark, we talked about his error as it were a little bit last week, and that was a big part of the Leyton Orient loss. But there were just little errors kind of all over the field with this one. I do also think that the referee made the standard for what was a penalty or a free kick quite low in this game, but at least in that regard, he did give Reading a few good free kicks right outside of the box, and he gave Reading a penalty in a relatively soft scenario as well. So I mean, if you're gonna be relatively soft on what's a penalty or a free kick, be consistent. Yeah, just a lot of really bad timings for Reading to concede or to have issues, and you're right, there were issues from set plays all round. But just I think the moment in the game that really solidified the result more than anything was shortly after Reading, got their lifeline from a really lovely goal from Ben Elliott. Of course, they then conceded shortly after from another penalty, and it's just really tough when you're trying to build up some momentum, both in the overall sense of the season with what's going on off the field. It's tough when there are things going on, but it's tough when you're trying to build up momentum during the game, and you have a good moment or whatever, but then it is immediately responded to by the opposition or whatever. So just a lot of really tricky little individual mistakes costing Reading, and they just never got into a game state where they could feasibly affect the game that much, to be honest. I mean, they were never closer than 3 goals to Bolton. So yeah, tricky one.
Well, they got it back to 3-1, didn't they?
Oh, they did get back to 3-1. You're right. Yep.
Look, I mean, if you really are desperate to watch it, and I'm not out here advertising it at all, because it was what it was at the time. We enjoyed it. I think other people sort of seemingly thought it was okay in terms of what we were doing on YouTube. But you will see, if you did one of those emotion charts, when Ben Elliott scored, we were right up there again. Both me and Ross were okay, great. Let's get a foot back in the game. And minutes before, I said we just need to get to half time. And then Ross said, actually, do you know what? We don't need half time now. We need to keep going. And it was that passage really summed up the game. I mean, Harry, who did the report for the game over on the Tilehurst end, it'll be on the website, Facebook, and X, and anywhere else you can get your hands on articles. His opening, or his kind of main quote was, "It just rankles that little bit more when the goals you concede are so avoidable." And that base, I mean, it's a great report anyway, but that particular quote is absolutely spot on, because were we horrendous? No. As a unit, there were some positive signs. I think Ruben said that after the game. But obviously the scoreline will tell you a completely different story. And those individual errors, I mean, the penalties were soft. The Lewis Wing free kick was avoidable, and I really don't think he should be doing that there. Take nothing away from the strike without sounding like a Sky Sports pundit. It was a great finish from Josh Sheehan, who's a Welsh international, by the way, just putting that out there. And and that was it. And basically that was, morale was already on the floor before the ball had been kicked. I I don't subscribe to the fact the players have given up, because they definitely haven't given up. They haven't given up at all. And anyone saying that, I don't really think understands the game. There's no reason for them to give up. You know, there's no no reason for them to throw the tools down and walk off. They're giving it the best they possibly can. And you know, there was a period when we came out in the second half where we looked all right. You know, we didn't look too bad. And over the course of the 45 minutes that followed the first half, in spells, I thought we were the better side for large parts of it.
Well, I think a lot of the second half, I think there was a lot of, so you can see it in the momentum charts, you can see it in the XG generated, which a lot of those momentum charts are building off anyway. That Reading had a really good start to the second half, especially, and they were able to put pressure on Bolton for a while in ways that caused them issues. And it would have been nice to have that done earlier, because, you know, Bolton came into that game, you know, there was a lot of speculation around the manager. They'd had a very bad result to Huddersfield the week before at home that had actually Huddersfield then went out and lost in a big one as well. So
crazy.
Weird league.
Crazy league.
Reading played well. If you look at Reading played well. Reading had periods where they played well. They produced almost as much XG from open play as Bolton did. I will say one thing: they got a few key saves from their goalkeeper at times that really helped the game momentum stay or keep us at arm's length. There's a really good save from Mbenge in there. I think there's a good save from Chem Campbell in there as well. So, you know, just at like little key moments whereby they needed a save, they got one. I would say Button, obviously, like not all of the goals that he conceded today. I'm still in live stream mode.
It feels
not
like it.
It feels like it is a long one. Yeah, not all of the goals that Button, you know, conceded were his fault at all. Let's make that clear, you know. But he still did concede 2 goals more than he faced on. So he faced 2.94 expected goals on target. That basically means after the shot has been taken. So they're assessing, like, you know, how dangerous that shot is when it's coming at you. You know, how likely is it they save it? He still, his goals prevented were -2. So he still, you know, would have been expected to save maybe 2 of those. And he didn't. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bolton had 0.83 in the positive for goals prevented. So their goalkeeper affected the game, made saves. Our goalkeeper was unable to do that. It's not the only factor. The numbers alone will tell you that. But we put up nearly as much expected goals on target as Bolton did. And yet our goalkeeper was not able to make saves that their goalkeeper was. And we're in a really tricky position with goalkeeping now.
Horrendous.
You know, like, what do we do at the next game? We've got one player, you know, young player who we bounced out after conceding one admittedly bad goal. And like I said, not doing great in build up, but you know, there's space to learn there. But then you've got Button, who, yes, he helps the team do what they want to do in build-up play, but he's good with reaction saves when the ball is close to him, but he's never going to make a long athletic save that you need him to. He is weak going into his corners, as you can see in the data if you look at the shots against him, and teams know this, so they know that if we play Button, they know how to attack him. I mean,
I've got an opinion on Button, and I want to round off, you know, Bolton by talking about him and 2 other individuals. Really, I mean, you know, going back to the goalkeeper situation, you know, you're right. We're struggling now, and I think one of the mistakes that was made from a message point of view was dropping CBC for Button. I know, obviously, you know, technically it did cost us the game against Leyton Orient because it was a dreadful mistake, but then you could argue that no one in the final third really did anything to affect the game either. So, you know, it's fine margins in that respect. But the problem that Sellers has got now is that, you know, by dropping Kanai Boys Clark, he's basically said, right, you're done now. That's it. And he's put all his eggs in one basket with David Button, whereas last season, and I said this on Saturday, David Button was given 3 or 4 games to be able to get himself out of it.
Well, I was
Come
just
on.
thinking too, Akande this season, the
Well,
first
yeah,
game that he started with us, a 3-0 loss on the road.
yeah.
But then starts again in the next game and has a chance to impact the game.
But
I don't
he's
necessarily think that Button is all in, like Sellers is all in on Button at this time, by the way, I'll say, but it does make it really tough. Like, I just
he
think from a
can't
man
change it.
management perspective, what do you do
Yeah,
now?
he can't change it for the game against Huddersfield unless there's a legitimate injury, because that sends just all the wrong messages then, because it's like, well, you're not going to get a game or a couple of games to work it out. You're not going to get this period of time to settle in. You're not going to get I understand the frustration with the goalkeepers. I really do. And I think, could he have saved the penalty, the second penalty? Yeah, for sure, because he moved the wrong way that one step, and he didn't need to move at that point. Through his legs as well. I mean, goalies don't want to get done there. You don't want to get done on your near side. You don't want to get free legs. Simple as that. And he did. And now we're in a situation, and there's a really good point in the mailbag, which I'll come back to, about the confidence level of the players in front of him, whoever that may be in goal, because they're not trusting that the person behind them is going to keep him out. And I said this after Northampton last season when Button threw 3 into the net, quite literally threw 3 into the net. So it's very, very difficult from Sellers' point of view in terms of being able to make any significant changes. All we can hope for is that Pereira have gone is going to come back. He's going to come back real quick, and we can move on from there. The other 2 players that I want to talk about, which I was absolutely gobsmacked that they didn't even get a look in terms of changes from the bench on Saturday, Jaden Wareham and Charlie Savage. I mean, what do you think he was thinking by not bringing both of those players on at any point in the game on Saturday?
I mean, like, look, you're not gonna like it, but if you look at so one thing I was saying when I was doing the ratings was that it was a really tricky game to rate, and when you get these games that have Reading having a big period of momentum during what I would term kind of garbage time, when you're 3 goals down in the second half, I do love
I like that garbage time.
It's a great phrase. It's really important to. I'll very briefly touch on this, like 30 seconds. But garbage time's a fantastic phrase. They use it in American football a lot, and basically, it's really important to fantasy football players because a lot of times, like, a team will have lost. They will be 28-0 down with 15 minutes to go. Game is over to all intents and purposes. So the team that's winning will send their second stringers out so they don't get injuries, because football is a savage game. And then you'll see, like, suddenly the team will look quite good and they'll start scoring points against the second stringers. So for fantasy football players who want their quarterback to do well or whatever, it's really important because you can score points, but they don't matter. They're not points when the game is actually on the line. It's garbage time. So anyway, when Reading do well in garbage time, it's really hard to rate them, because if you look at all of the stat sites for the game against Bolton, they've given Elliott, Nibs, and Wing good scores. And I can see why, because there were large periods of the game where they were really on top of it. They were making good passes. They found the final third a lot. Wing created 5 chances and very well should have had an assist, probably from either Smith or Mbenge's chances that he made from them at the back post. But none of this matters when you're 3 goals down in the second half, like, unless you have a once every 2 or 3 seasons situation, like with Swansea a few years back, where just everything goes nuts and, you draw 4-4. It just doesn't happen that often. Like, it's not, it's the rub of the green isn't going to come for you that often. So, why didn't Savage and Wareham get a place in the team? That is the question you asked me. Because
okay. So I mean, Savage is a different thing, and we could.
No. I said this is really wait, real quick.
Actually, them coming on in the game to try and affect it, or at least shuffle it up a little bit, especially Wareham.
Wareham, yes. Wareham, I'm with you on. With Savage, or I was going to kind of say was that the midfield were playing well in that period where, like, you would have traditionally seen, like, them bring on a centre mid around, like, the 60th or the 70th minute or whatever. But at that point, Nibs, Elliott, and Wing were all playing okay. So it was like, well, who do you withdraw? Completely agree about Smith, though. Outside of the penalty,
nothing.
I'm not seeing a whole lot right now. I almost would prefer, like we talked about a few times, not prefer, but maybe at some point it would be interesting to see, you know, kind of what a more of a diamond midfield with Kelvin and Chem Campbell up top looks like, or whatever that looks like. I think we need to start wondering if Smith is under any pressure from Kelvin for his place soon. But if he's scoring, he's not going to be, even if those are penalties. But I think that there's an argument to be made that given Smith's start to the season, which has been okay without being great, Kelvin is actually a pretty viable option at the moment.
I mean, I made the point about, you know, Boyce Clark being given an opportunity to try and work it out over a period of games, right? Now, whether or not he's earned that right, I don't know. That, you know, there's obviously an age element to it. You know, he had a bit of an iffy pre-season. He's made other mistakes with the club before and all the rest of it. So park that one temporarily. With Charlie Savage, right? Mm. He's the club's top scorer currently. Okay, he's played a number of different midfield roles. As I said on Saturday, I think there is still a lot of room for improvement, but he's still a young player technically, still a young player learning his trade, right? He's a full international. Forget this with Wales, it doesn't matter. If you're full international, you're full international. Playing regularly for the under-21s there in their setup with some good players, I might add. Do you not think that from his point of view, he will be going, I've done everything I can be asked of. I didn't really probably get a fair share of the work last season. I was chopped and changed all the time. The minute Nibs is fit or deemed fit enough to play, I'm bombed out of the team. Didn't have a great game against Leyton Orient, but 10 other players didn't have a good game against Leyton Orient the other week. Do you, on the balance of those facts, right, do you not think that he should have been given the opportunity against Bolton to have another game and go, right, well, off you go then, rather than being straight away removed for Nibs? Because we talk about man management with CBC and David Button. This is the same thing, right? Surely. This is the same kind of ballpark in terms of, you know, I've done everything I can. I've scored goals. I've got us out of jail a couple of times this season, you know, picked up points with my goals, all the rest of it. Like, should I not be given the opportunity to mess up and then, you know, be removed because I'm not playing well after 2 or 3 games? I don't think he'd complain about that. But from his point of view, do you not? I mean, am I like going off on a completely different tangent here, or is that
no? I think I think that is like from a personal perspective for Charlie Savage, like it is frustrating. And like, you know, this is a player that is developing well, you know, in what we can see elsewhere with the Wales team, whether that be the full team or the under-21 team, and like you say, scoring goals when he is on the field. So we know that he has qualities. I think that the issue that Charlie Savage has, it was touched on when I spoke to Nick Blackman last year, where he said, he talked about Adkins, and he said, I know I've talked about this before, but he said how, you know, great guy, but Nick Blackman was not the kind of player that Adkins needed for his system. And so regardless of how well he could play, and the skills that he could bring to the pitch that we then saw later on, you know, with Steve Clark, he just wasn't getting the right look in because he wasn't the right player for Nigel Adkins' system. And I think that's the issue that Charlie Savage is having a little bit, is that he's just not necessarily not the right player for this system, but there are other players on the roster who are more suited to the midfield that Sellers wants to play right now. Nibs came back into the team and immediately attempted the most like duels, challenges, whatever, of anyone on the Reading side of the field. So it's just remarkable how much he does and how important he is to the way that Reading want to play. And there were several attacks started from Nibs doing that. At the moment, just numerically, that's not something that Charlie Savage has shown us on the field. And so I can completely understand why, from his perspective, he would be, you know, frustrated. I just think that in terms of what we need from our left-sided 8, you know, on the field, at the moment, Nibs is just much more able to provide that. And Savage struggles a little bit from being very left side dominant, I think, where Craig isn't so much, even though he is playing on the right side at the moment, at right back. He could kind of like move a little bit everywhere. Last season, he would play on the left when Wing would want to be pushing over into that kind of right back spot during build up. Elliott is very versatile as well. He'll move around the field. He's been deployed more within the right space at the moment, but only because Nibs has that left space so locked down. So Savage, great player, lots of really good qualities. At the moment, is not a better fit for the midfield that we have, or the midfield that we're trying to run, basically. And Elliott, Nibs, and Wing, when they're firing, when they're clicking, it's a really good midfield. It puts up good numbers. That's why Savage isn't getting a look in. Again, maybe change the top line to accommodate, but I'm not sure how else you could do it.
Well, I mean, we could debate it forever. We could do a whole podcast on the midfield. There are players that you like as a fan, and he's definitely one of them. I just feel that regardless of whether I liked him or not. And it's the same, I think, with Boyce Clark. I just think some of these players have earned the right to have a little bit more inconsistency and actually be given a bit more of a fair crack of the whip. And I just think from a young player's point of view, and people go, "It's football, Ben, shut up." And I understand that. I do understand that. But when you have done everything you can do in the team, and you're scoring goals and you're the top scorer at this point in the season and whatever, but you're then bombed out for someone else who's just come back after a month and a half out. I don't think the headspace is going to be right, frankly, and I do question Sellers on Saturday in terms of not mixing up. Certainly for Wareham, I think that was bonkers, quite frankly. And also bringing Savage into the midfield at around the 60-minute mark probably would have given us a bit more of a drive at that point when others were flagging. I don't know. I thought it was strange. I really did.
That's my problem. In my point, I just don't think he would have impacted it much more than Nibs, Elliott, and Wing, even at that point. Just because looking at the momentum through, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at momentum through 85 minutes is all in Reading's favour. There's a little blip between the 60 and the 70-minute mark, so maybe he could have come on then. But between the 49th minute and the 85th minute, Reading are dominating in terms of expected goals generated. It's tricky. Can we finish off the recap on a more positive note? Because we haven't mentioned Kelvin Abrafa, who was great.
He was great. Yeah, really. I mean, he's another player that I really, really like, and we know that Dorset's going to be out, but Abrafa showed that he can play left back as well. And I think, do you know what? Out of everything this season, the players that are filling in on both sides of the fullback area, Michael Craig, obviously we talked about a lot. Fantastic right back. I think he's going to be a better right back than he is a midfielder, personally. But Abrafa coming on, he really did give us a lot of drive, and I know it wasn't an intended change at that point. Dreadful tackle, by the way, from, I think it was Dion Charles who cleaned out Dorset. Horrendous tackle, really. But, the fullbacks have been a real positive in terms of the way that they've been able to kind of shift in. So, long may that continue. We're gonna jump into the mailbag / listeners corner. I mean, bear with us on this one. It's going to be difficult. So we're going to there's going to be a lot of and an in while we choose our words carefully. But we'll get into that after this short break.
The name of my players. Right.
So welcome back to episode 390 of the Tilehurst podcast. I'm Ben Thomas, and joined as always by Ross Webber. Look, it's been a very, very difficult week on and off the pitch. Two losses, Leyton Orient at home, Bolton away, coupled with the fact that on Thursday, seems like a lifetime ago, we were informed officially by the club, I say we, everyone, that the sale, never mentioned by name, but we know who it was, that was intended to go through by Coig and his team, has fallen through. So we're, if that's news to you, where have you been?
Yeah, sorry if that's news.
If you've just dropped a bombshell on your Tuesday morning drive to work or whatever, then I'm sorry, but that's.
Can I actually say thank you though, also to the two people who that might be the case for, that you trust us to bring you your Reading Football Club news. Sorry that's happened.
I mean, there's a lot of questions around this, and we're going to try and piece it together. I mean, we'll no pressure, but we'll start with Jimmy Blue, who says, "I just want to hear some good insight and informative chat on the whole mess. Not getting that anywhere else."
There is
I'm
a lot of
laughing.
nonsense
I'm
out there right
laughing.
now.
Okay,
I'm
Jimmy.
not.
Right.
Yeah.
So what can we give you? So okay. Right. So effectively, where we are currently as a football club is that we're still under Dye's ownership. We have been told by the club, and I'm going off official channels here because that's all we can do currently. And I know that's not good enough for a lot of people, and I'm not here to debate that at the moment, and we're not here to debate that. But we are told that all of the money that was paid into the club by a potential investor has been paid back. So we're talking around about 3 or 4 million. On top of that, the club have said that they are able to operate financially for the foreseeable future, whatever the hell that means. Now, my understanding, and I'm assuming Ross's as well, is that the club do not have the Elise money yet. But somewhere within that Dye family sphere or circle or whatever you want to call it, there has been an injection of cash. So the questions remain, why was that money not readily available before potential investors started to pump money in? Secondly, how much money are we talking about in terms of foreseeable future and operating costs? And thirdly, does that mean that the Elise money is just a nice little bonus and it's not as important as first feared or thought when Elise was sold by Crystal Palace to Bayern Munich earlier this month? So they're really a combination of facts and questions that we can't answer. On top of that, Nigel Howe, who is, well, at the centre point of any deal going through, I don't know, was put in front of the media. Whether or not he was asked to do that or whether or not he did it off his own back, I have no idea. My personal opinion is, frankly, I don't actually care, because the answers that he gave were strange. They were misguided. In my opinion, they were egotistical, and they were completely and utterly disrespectful to the fan base and a lot of the staff that have been working incredibly hard to keep this club afloat. That's my opinion, and I have to keep saying that word for obvious reasons. Now, you cannot question what Nigel Howe has done for this football club over previous ownership regimes, in terms of driving it, in terms of the brand, in terms of supporting the club and everything else. But currently at this stage, according to him and the club, he is there to sell the club. And the fact, and I'm going to go back to Jimmy Blue in terms of what he wants here, is that it's still not being sold. So then the questions are, what's been going on? What has actually been going on with this club? That's then led to other people, which I really, and I hope Ross is with me, don't want to name by person, that have come out with some statements which are being formally investigated by a number of different organisations, including Star. And I had a conversation with Sarah today, which will Sarah Turner is the chair of Star, and that will largely remain, it will remain private about that. However, they released a kind of a statement today, and I'll read that. You may have read some of the information on the internet from Daniel Leutz. Star have met with Daniel and have encouraged him to hand over any evidence he may have to the correct authorities. We've discussed headlines with Mr. Leutz, but to date have not seen any of his evidence, so we are unable to corroborate or comment on its validity. The other question that we got asked is whether or not we had an opinion on the comments that individual made. I'll go first. No, I don't. Ross, do you have an opinion on those comments that were made?
Not really, no. I'm pretty much at this point only reacting to anything regarding the takeover that comes from official sources. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, it's been going on so long that at this stage, I'm not interested in commenting on things that are going on online.
So that's where we're at, Jimmy. That is really where we're at. We can't give you any more information than the facts that you've had we have given our opinions. Or I've given my opinion. I've let Ross get a word in edgeways. He's kind of given his bits and bobs. But, the facts are we're still under die. We're told that he's committed to selling the club.
I'm wondering also, I got more interested in what you were talking about, the Elise money and where that's gone and where it comes from. Because so many transfers are amortized now, whereby, it's 100 million for Jude Bellingham and Real Madrid will be paying that for a few years. They will not be, they don't just go, all right, here's 100 million pounds, Borussia. Obviously, I think everyone knows this, it goes more slowly. And I almost wonder if that Elise, I wonder if, sell-on percentages are paid at the time, of purchase by the club that's just sold the player, or if that is also amortized. And therefore, I kind of wonder, is the club almost able to use that Elise money almost like a line of credit right now?
Well, exactly. This is how much we're getting. Can we hedge that against something else? I mean, the other thing about
I don't know anything about finance. I'm just going to put that out there, because you said this is my opinion a bunch of times, so I want to put I know nothing about finance out there.
One of the things I've always wondered is how quickly that, because that when you have a big transfer, that's often broken down into installments, right? Because if you think about when Real Madrid signed Gareth Bale for whatever it was, 80 million or whatever, just an absurd amount of money. They won't have 80 million lying around in cash flow, will they? They're not going to go, right.
I'm just having
PayPal. You know what I mean? And we'll just knock that over now.
I have to interrupt you because we've just made the exact same point both, but I've chosen an English player to do it and you've chosen a Welsh player to do it. So that's quite, I'm just enjoying that. Just for a second.
We can only be ourselves on this show. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? In terms of the speed at which that money gets to where it needs to be it's an interesting one, isn't it? In terms of how quickly.
No, definitely.
We're what? 1.6 maybe for that, for the knock on.
I'm not even sure. To be honest, I'm not even sure how much that is because you don't even know necessarily how much Bayern paid for Elise and things like that too. True. So that stuff's also hard to understand. I thought it was actually closer to the range of 3 or 4 million.
Okay, maybe I've got it completely wrong then.
No, I could be wrong too, though. So, this is some of that well-informed coverage that the mailbag is looking for.
Yeah, I said, Jimmy, I feel like we're letting you down, mate. I really do. Listen, in all jokes aside, we do have opinions. Hand on heart, neither of us, myself and Ross, listened to the space that was put up yesterday, and we're not going to. That's really where we're at with it. In terms of all the other stuff, there are things that have been said. There's an awful lot of hyperbole and rumor and everything else around. Ultimately, the deal's not happened. And frankly, where I'm at, my personal opinion right now, Jim, is I don't really care why it hasn't happened. All I care about is everyone's energy involved, getting the sale done to someone or passed to someone else. I'm not really interested anymore in the hows and whys of why previous things haven't happened. I'm really not, and that might be selfish.
Yeah.
But actually, from my point of view, I just want a club to be sold, and I just want to move on with it so that we all know where we stand. That's really where we're at, Jimmy. So I hope we've kind of given you something to hang your hat on. I don't know. I hope you come back again and give us another question or listen to something else that we do. I'm not sure, but we cannot give you anything else because the rest of it's just rumor and people's opinions and all this other stuff. It's not going to help us at this stage, really.
I think the main thing is I think both of us are very committed to making sure that whatever outcome the club eventually gets is a positive one. But you and I are also not necessarily people that like to engage with things outside of what is confirmable and what is, just pure fact that you can see on, wherever. So, I think also because we've been around the circle, the cycle, the vicious cycle with it a few times too, that I'm really just kind of waiting to hear. I think Ruben said at one point, right? I don't want to talk about that anymore. I'm just going to talk about it now once it's done or whatever.
And I said this to someone in the week. If I was Ruben Sellers, I would go full diva and go, any one of you people in this room ask me about the takeover, I'm getting up and walking out. I'm going to come in. I'm going to tell you where we're at on the training field,
Right.
injury-wise, selection possibilities, all this sort of stuff. Anyone dare ask me about the takeover, I'm out, because he served his time now. He doesn't need to keep asking these questions, and he shouldn't have to answer these questions because it's got nothing to do with him. You know, it
Yeah, I
really
was
hasn't.
frustrated the way that's actually one, like, because I guess like the reason I said the last thing is because I'm sure that there are some like fans who want us to go in a little bit harder on what's been going on over the last week. But
Yeah.
and the one thing I will say I was a little frustrated with was the fact that Ruben was the first person to speak again after the rumors and then confirmation that Koheg, and that deal was off. It really frustrated me that Ruben was the first person from the club to speak.
Yeah.
That is a moment where like I don't even know, man. Like someone's got to say, come on, like don't make him do this again, like again for the third time. Like why are we come on, like the third time around, like can't we have anybody go out elsewise and say, we will answer a few questions for you, and then Ruben is going to talk about what is going on at the training ground and Bolton, and that's it.
And again, I thought his comments were really interesting about not getting support from people at the club. And again, that got misconstrued. It's like, wow, it's the club as an organisation that aren't supporting him. No one knows. Like, Ruben knows. Ruben's got his opinions.
I think
he was in touch.
Support he'd get from like any usual club, the type of support that he was probably used to getting when he was at Southampton, or who are, yes, a Premier League club and a big club, but they're not a million miles away from us. They have like a silly steel bowl stadium like we do, and they're from a a slightly nice part of the country like we are. So like, like, I don't know. It's all, I don't think it's like him saying, this person, the tea lady's really not made my tea the way that I like it this week. I think it's more about like, I am not getting the support that every other manager in this league is getting, basically.
Yeah. I saw someone go, oh, others need to be doing a better job of supporting staff and players. Who? Like, we know what the issues are. So why are we going over and over and over again? Like, Ruben shouldn't be having to field these questions time and time again every single week, but he is. Right? Yeah. We all know who should be answering those questions in terms of club hierarchy, but they can't. And Ross is absolutely spot on. When you talk about seems like others, or the club needs to be doing this, you're talking about everyone in that organisation. So just for me, it's not something that needs to be constantly focused in on. We know what the situation is. It's like people that slow their cars down to look at a car that's crashed on the other side of the road. It's crashed. Move on. Like, you got to just work out how to help people out from that point on. I don't know. I just think people have lost their minds recently. Maybe I've lost my mind. Who knows?
Let's move on from this part.
Move on to what else we got. We need to try our hardest. So Matt, and this one is MC981. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Blah, blah. I'm being an idiot. Matt at MC981871. There's a lot of numbers there. Sorry, Matt. We need to try our hardest to separate off the pitch and on the pitch issues. Can't use takeover as an excuse after every defeat, claiming players have given up. It's insulting to them. They're giving everything. Just silly mistakes cost us at the moment. Hopefully things turn up. I'd agree with that. I think it's very difficult to go, well, it's not going to have an effect, because it will. But I said earlier on in the pod, Matt, some nonsense about the players have given up. They definitely haven't given up.
No,
haven't given up, and they won't give up because they're not those players.
The fact that Abrafa came on, the fact that Abrafa came on and immediately gave it the beans shows you that the players haven't given up. Akande came on and gave it the beans. He looked really bothered at one point. He couldn't fish the ball out of his feet so he could get a shot off in the box, and he was annoyed about it. They're trying. They're really going for it. It's a good point. We can't use the takeover as an excuse, and I don't think Ruben would want to either. I think he wants to try to keep the football side of things separate. That's kind of what he was talking about with any potential protest. He wants them not to affect the coaching staff and the team in any particular way. So I think that I agree. I don't think the coaching staff are using that either. And I hope that, we're still trying to provide some football analysis and stuff like that on the games, not just focusing on the takeover and saying, oh, we can't do anything.
Andy McLaughlin, hope I've said that right, Andy. Cracking Scottish name, if that is the case. Love that. I think I'm at the point now where I want Ruben to move on and achieve better than we can offer. He's done more than he needs to. What do you make of this dialogue where Reading fans, every time a job comes up, they're like, right, he's off. He's gone. What's your take on that, Ross?
Well, I really don't want him to go, so no, thank you.
Yeah,
like, that's about it. Like, I want our manager to stick around. Like, I don't think, I mean, like, Reading haven't had a ton of managers that I've really liked in the last, I mean, honestly, 10 years. And this one I like. So, I mean, if you're asking me personally, what are you doing? Stop being weird. Like, no, leave him alone. Like, just don't tell Ruben there are other jobs available. Tell him this is the only job available. Like, I appreciate the, like, I'd like him to have a proper budget and all of these things. Yeah, I'd like him to have that in RG too. Like, I don't want him to have it elsewhere. Like, I want Ruben to stick it out, get a good owner who he can actually work with, and take this club on. So, yeah, no, I don't.
It's funny because I was getting really annoyed at the weekend. Shock. Imagine my shock that I was getting annoyed. But people are like, oh, well, Cardiff have just sacked Bullet, so that means that Ruben's going to go. And I'm like, stop pimping him out for these jobs. Let's stop advertising. But then everyone like, well, he's going to find out anyway, isn't he? He's not like we've just dropped the bombshell that the club's not being sold to Rob Coig, is it? It's the same thing with him going, goodness me, this chap here has just said that I should go for the Cardiff job. I didn't know anything about that. Like, it's one of those, isn't it? It's just bizarre.
He's getting his LinkedIn updated right now.
Yeah, exactly. What a world we live in currently. Honestly, it's just like a parallel.
I don't want Ruben going anywhere. Personally, is my personal feeling. So. Yeah. That said, I do think our buddy James Oliver Pearce would do a good job if he had to step up.
Yeah, that is or Noel Hunt. We can always go back to him. He's a lifer, isn't he? Bless him.
He is.
There's some other stuff on here that I'm not deliberately ignoring, but we sort of covered. There's a question about the Twitter space or the area that was mentioned yesterday. It was very interesting and concerning to hear what that person had to say. Sounds like there's possibly something very big going on there. That's from RFC Martyr, which I think might be Peter Martyr. We kind of covered that one already in terms of our take on it. We're not really sort of going there at this stage. David Lee, as much as I absolutely hate to say it, and as much as we may think we have, I believe there's further levels to come before Reading FC truly hit rock bottom. And he's put that emoji of this face with like the really sad face.
Oh, that's his emoji. That's his emoji feeling then. Okay.
That kills me when people use that.
Yeah.
That makes me feel quite sad inside. It does. It's just like it's like a.
I know. I'm just imagining if I'm just picturing myself using AIM Messenger for the first time in the early 2000s and using emojis for the first time and not knowing that in 20 years' time I will be having these conversations. What emoji best describes you? It's like, oh, the little green one.
It's like, but that's the face where if you were on MSN Messenger and you use it and you go, and your mate goes, what did you have for dinner? And you go, jacket potatoes with beans. That's the emoji that you put back. And, sorry, sad face.
Oh, okay. You don't like that. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's all right as a snack. It's not dinner, is it? It's not dinner.
It's bad to ask me very typically British things like jacket potatoes because I'll just get nostalgic and I'll want them. Okay. So like to me, like to you guys, I'm sure like beans on toast, jacket potatoes, bangers and mash, I'm sure these are all very boring things. But when I'm in England, I literally can't get, oh God, bangers and mash in particular, I eat it like crazy. Anyway, back to the liснers.
Well, David Lee says it's going to get worse. I don't know. I hope it doesn't, but he could be right. I mean, who knows anymore at this stage. What else we got?
One thing I'll quickly say on that: if you want to support the club in like times like this, and money or whatever is, I don't know, I'm not going to say money is tight or whatever, but like if and you want to do something that I think will be felt, go and watch the women's team down at Harbour Park. Just because I think they're really trying to build something. They're trying to build the plane while it's flying. With that thing is what I would say, and they're really doing their best. And from what
feel good stuff down there by all accounts. Nice little stadium.
Yeah.
Good kind of atmosphere from the hardy people. I say hardy souls, but you know what I
It
mean.
is just like, it seems literally like it is very talented, like because there are talented people all around us, but it feels like, you know, people from, you know, who could live next to you are
Yeah,
playing for that
playing
club
for it,
and things like
basically.
that right now. And they are incredibly talented and warriors, which is awesome. But, you know, they need our support. So get out and support the club.
Nedai says for the season, survive financially and stay up. Admin possible, but being a club next year is more important. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be admin at this stage, Ned. I really don't see that with the money that we've got coming in, because we've been told, and I know that it could be a lot, but this is all we've got to go off. You know, we've been told that the money's there to keep us going for the foreseeable future. So, but I don't think it'll be admin. But I think you're right. I think stay up is probably the benchmark of where we're at now currently. That said, it's not been a horrific start to the season given the games that we previewed at the start of the season. So who knows? Tom Hill, flipping idiots back. Of course, he's had to spice it up a bit. on a scale from a plump pillow to rabbit fur, how soft did a tackle need to be in order for the referee to give a foul on Saturday?
Oh, wow.
What's the softest thing you can think of? A Milky Way. The middle of a Milky Way.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say margarine left outside in July.
But that's just liquid, isn't it?
Well, no, I think it's still got enough in it. It's soft though, isn't it? If you touch, you know, like when you get the margarine or the butter and it's in one of those little butter trays and you open it up
okay. Well, yeah, okay,
you
fine.
put your
It's not
fingers in it.
liquidized.
Yeah, that's very soft.
There's a plumpness to it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Anything oily feels soft. No, I think.
What did you make? All jokes aside, I mean, I'd probably go rabbit fur.
Oh, rabbit fur. No, I will. Oh, yeah, margarine. That's what I was saying. I will. Quick other thing on those referee decisions. Something's going on this season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Across the English football, something's going on with the refereeing. I'm not sure what it is. But I remember last year they tried, after the World Cup, they tried bringing in the sort of, you know, like 10-minute extra time periods and things like that. And then they quickly scrapped that when they realized the negative link that has to sort of like the players playing too much stuff. But it seems like there's something going on with regards to player behavior on the field and gamesmanship and things like that at the moment. The refs are reacting to that. Could be wrong, just a hunch. But yeah, fouls seem a little softer.
I think you're right. It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, there were some really bizarre bits over the weekend. There was one of the lads from a different team got bitten, and he was trying to show the assistant. Yeah, he got bitten. I can't remember the commentary game, maybe.
Oh my word! Okay, I thought you said by the assistant referee for a minute.
He was trying to show the assistant referee. He's going, look, I've been bitten on the neck.
Right, that's what you said.
Just told him to keep going away. Mental.
I was too busy interrupting you. I thought you said that he got bitten by the assistant referee.
No. He got bitten by one of the players on the pitch.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to show this referee, and the ref kept going, no, go away. So
last bit of shithousery for the weekend. I did think it was really funny when Haaland threw the ball at Gabriel's head. I'm sorry. I know that.
Did you see it from the kickoff though? When it was 2 and he went straight
into
party.
Yeah.
Clock it. Like, you know, again, we don't want to touch that one with a barge pole, but there's a few players that you want to clock, and he's one of them.
Head loss right there. Just
straight in.
Your man just gone. Yeah, wonderful.
On that note, before we close off the mailbag with a really nice question, we have maybe not my cup over. We have Tilehurst End's fantasy football league going on the Premier League site. We were going to do the EFL, but it just looks horrendous. You know, can't go there. And there's quite a few in there. There's about 300, I think, in there. But Ross is currently in 15th place with 349 points. I'm 16th with 347 points. So we might be bang average podcast hosts, but we definitely know our Premier League ball.
Yeah.
So that's nice, isn't it?
Out of 16 people, right?
No. yeah. 17 because I was bottom. But yeah, no, there's a lot of I mean, the one at the top's got like 390 something points.
I know some people are like beautiful minds
Freaks.
people when it comes to see. There you go. You call them freaks, and I call them beautiful minds. So that's the difference.
Charlie Beveridge, and his
Beveridge.
team is called Good question mark. Quite like that.
Yeah, well, they're good exclamation mark right now.
Well, could be a her. I don't know. Could be a they. 391 points, and the nearest contender to that person is Ian Bennett, and they're on 372. So there's almost a 20-point gap between first and second.
No, I'm telling
you,
difficult
to claw that
people. Back. It is. It's a mathematical problem masquerading as a game. FPL, and some people are just able to understand the equation, as it were.
But I mean, it's quite interesting that Ross is literally just above me in the table.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I have to check that out later.
In fact, you're 2 points ahead of me, and you've got 2 extra points this week. So that's where you got 2 points from.
Oh, so, perfect. There we go. So you're neck and neck. Nice.
Literally neck and neck. Final one before we move on. Where has it gone? It is here. Right. David Monday sent me this on X. He says, "Hi, Ben. Podcast mailbag question. What Reading FC players' names do you regularly get wrong? With our current goalkeeping crisis, I've been plunged back into the occasional accidental Jensen or Benjamin Button for David Button. For some reason, always call Craig Clark. I'm old enough that after a couple of pints, Charlie Savage becomes Robbie. And I once confused my teenage daughter with an Ed Sheeran reference when I meant Sam Smith. Is it just me, or do you have any perennial player names problems?" Shoot.
We literally have a player called Kelvin Ehibachiman, and I didn't even get his name out properly there. So that tells you all you need to. Kelvin Ehibachiman. I mean, like I've heard... I don't think any two people say his name the same way. Like I think Ben and I say different things to each other about Kelvin all the time. I will find excuses to call him Kelvin in the ratings all the time because it just makes life easier. So I think it has to be Kelvin.
Big E.
Big E. Yeah, like that. Yeah, exactly. And then I feel sorry for his brother too, who's Prince-ul Ehibachiman. So I mean, like that man is hogging the consonants right there.
The one I was absolutely paranoid about. You know when we had James Oliver Pearce on the pod last season?
Yep.
Honestly, leading up to that, I was saying to people, we've got James Ward-Prowse on the pod. And they were like,
"Oh, yeah.
Why have you got him on?" And I was like, what do you mean? He's like the assistant coach. I went, James Oliver Pearce. I went, that's what I said. He went, no, you said James Ward-Prowse. And honestly, throughout that pod, if you watch the video, I think it's on YouTube or something, the recording or whatever, the clips, in my head, I'm like, just don't say it. Just don't say James Ward-Prowse. Like, just, and that's why I keep saying like JOP or whatever, because I'm constantly calling him James Ward-Prowse as opposed to James Ward-Prowse.
Do you know what I'd like to hear?
They look like each other a little bit as well, don't they? So,
no, they've got that. Yeah, they're both fair. You know, they're very pale-ish people. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a good one.
But I'm trying to. I don't think there's anyone. I'm trying to think if there was anyone from yesterday.
Do you know what I want to hear? I'd like to hear Ruben or anybody else with an Iberian accent say Ehibachiman, because I like the way that like Ruben says like philosophy and stuff like that. You know, and most, you know, like the Athletics Spanish reporter who's on the podcast a lot and stuff, you know, has that accent too. So it's a pretty common way of, you know, people from the Iberian Peninsula speaking English, like it's pretty normal. But I just think there's so many different vowels in Kelvin's last name. It'd be interesting to hear how Ruben says it. But maybe we'll find out that Kelvin is actually like part Spanish, you know, like Femi Miguel Leguiz, and you know,
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, that was a really, really good question. I did have to think about, but James Oliver Pearce was the one that came straight into my head. But that's a good question.
Yeardom. Yeah, I'll give you one more. Yeardom, because I've heard Yadam, and then there's a player in the NFL now called Yeardom as well. And the commentators are having a whole there. It's just spin the wheel on what his name's going to come out as. Really? So I will say Yeardom, and you hear Yid sometimes. Yadom, I've heard, like FIFA called him something slightly different. Yeah, I say his name's a little bit depends how you attack the first syllable sometimes.
True. And I mean, I guess what he means is not misspelling them, but just confusing them with someone completely different because of their name.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Right. Well, that is a really good question. We love that. We had one a couple of months ago, when we did the which players do you always have to say both their names? And that was a really good little feature. So yeah, like that. We're going to move into the preview. Conscious that this pod is dragging on a little bit. So we're going to jump into the preview. We've got Ajax and Huddersfield, just Ajax and Huddersfield to sort of preview for this next week. So grab a quick drink, a light snack, and we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back to the final part of your Tilehurst End podcast, episode 390. It just sums up, really sums up where we are as a club. We are playing Ajax and Huddersfield in RG2 over the next couple of days. Of course, a little bit, bending it just a little bit here. Ajax is an under-21 game. Tickets are still available. You do have to book them in advance. It's reserved seating by all accounts. So that's quite fun. And there's food available, which is even more funner.
Ooh, okay.
And I think the shop's open. And yeah, it's like a proper midweek game against Ajax. So that'll be really good if you can get down to, I think it's like £4 or something. So, it's not too bad really. And I appreciate the club trying to get some money through the door, because it, potentially it'd be quite a nice little crowd, maybe 1,000, 2,000.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Some famous kits running around on the
it's nice. It's nice to go. I've seen an Ajax team play here. And Ajax are one of the clubs, right? If you like football, Ajax historically are one of the.
Well, and also, like, even if it's like one of the clubs that you want to see the U21s for, like young Ajax are a legendary youth team. They have produced countless amazing players through the years. So like, I'm sure that like, maybe those players that you see won't go on to be the biggest stars in the world, but I am confident that of the players that you see in that U21 Ajax game, you will see players who will play in the Champions League consistently in the future, because they produce players that are useful within lots of different systems. They're technical. They don't lack the physical side of the game either. It's a great academy.
Just having a little look. Tickets are only available currently in the lower west. You do have to book them in advance, and they are £4 I think. Yes, they are. Adults are £4, 13 and under £1. So could be a nice little night out for very little to watch a bit of football. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock though, so please don't get caught out with the traffic and everything else. It is 7 o'clock kickoff, so get yourself down for that one. And then of course we are back in league action against the Terriers. I've got a lot of time for Huddersfield fans, I have to say. Always been very respectful of where we have been. It's quite weird in the fact that our clubs have always been quite mirrored in terms of where we've been, whether that's competing for the Premier League with a playoff final all those years ago, to relegation now, to kind of being mid-table Warriors in the Championship, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, got a lot of time for Huddersfield fans. 12:30 12:30 kickoff at the SCL, Ross. Does Ruben make changes for that game?
It's an early click off for me to 7:30 in the morning. So yeah. Does Ruben make changes? Probably not too many. And again, it just kind of comes down to whether. So a couple of things. One, is the Dorset change forced? Dorset had to come off the field in the first half against Bolton. So considering it looked like maybe the same ankle that he hurt last season, that could be a tricky one. So if Dorset's gone, then a Brafer will come in. And then it comes down to what you do with Button and Boyce Clark, and who starts there. And I think that's a really tricky question that I don't necessarily have the answer to. It's going to require some man management behind the scenes that we are not privy to. yeah, I think I might be tempted to go back to Boyce Clark, but I don't have too much confidence either way around there. So yeah, I think a Braith will come in, and I think that Boyce Clark is probably my pick over Button to come back in. But I like the idea of chopping and changing between goalkeepers? Not at all.
I mean, Huddersfield are a team that no one really talked about at the start of the year. Obviously, they come down from the Championship, but there wasn't really huge expectation placed on them as a club. The results have been sort of all right, really. They've been sort of ticking along without any real notice, apart from that absolute, score fest, if you like, at Bolton the previous week when they beat them 4-0. I mean, they drew, or rather, sorry, they beat Peterborough at the start of the season, went through in the Cup against Morecambe, beat Stevenage, beat Shrewsbury, EFL second round. Yeah, they lost to Walsall, which most teams do tend to.
I feel like
the second round really.
I
lost
feel like
to Rotherham.
I was just going to say, sorry, I feel like Bolton and Birmingham were the teams that people were fancying at the start of the season, and we talked about them, and they were in, I think they were 4-4-2's picks to go up to, and I think like the next rung of teams were like Huddersfield and Rotherham, and Rotherham got more coverage because of the Steve Evans thing, and then because they just started the season really in the pits and still haven't had that good of a start. They're a point behind us, but yeah, like it's still not trending really in the right direction. So I feel like Huddersfield have gone under the radar, like you said. Plus, it's still early. But yeah, 4 wins out of 6 it isn't bad at all. And they've scored quite a few goals doing it. So
they have. I mean, it sums up the league really, where they go to Bolton and beat them 4-0 and then lose 3-1 to Northampton. No disrespect to Northampton at all, but they're still 5th in League One. The bonus for us, I guess, is that they play tomorrow night against Blackpool. Steve Bruce's Blackpool now, who had a very good result against Charlton at the weekend, beating them. Did they beat them? I think
they did. Yeah, they did.
But yeah, they're 5th. And it just shows you in this league that you can be incredibly inconsistent, but still be pretty good in a position to be able to kick on in the league. So it is live on Sky. It is 12:30 kickoff, so adjust your clocks accordingly. Don't get caught out by that one. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this week. We've got 2 games to look forward to. Certainly tomorrow night to look forward to and enjoy the experience of that in terms of watching a very young, proud European giant come to Reading. In itself is an honour, I guess. So that'll be good. And then we get back to it against Huddersfield. I've said before, we have to keep picking up points at home to be able to compete in this league, and hopefully we can get something out of that game to kind of kickstart this mini slump that we're currently in on and off the pitch. Really, long term, it's up to other people to sort out the stuff in the boardroom, but on the pitch, these players can do something. They just need stability, and they just need to remember why they were so good previously. So, we'll see what happens. Ross, thank you for joining me on this. Well, it's been raining all day in Reading, to be honest. It's just chucking it down now.
It's an all right day here. And, it's funny, while we've been recording the podcast, there's been a kid down the street just playing soccer against the rebounder that she's got in her backyard there. So
did you tell her to shut up?
No. People go to practice, man. Like players got to get their touches. So good to see. Nice time of year to play football.
Well, exactly. Yeah, weather's just about to turn, isn't it? But
yeah.
As always, thank you for your company. It's good to talk to you. One day we'll I don't know. We won't have to do pods that talk about takeovers, but we're not at that stage yet. So we're not at that stage.
What we'll do is we'll do a turnover pod once that's done, and we'll spend a whole pod turning about what kind of turnovers that we like. Apple, cheese Danish, many types. So anyway, looking forward to that pod.
Oh God, it's just nonsense, isn't it? Absolute nonsense. Thank you for joining us on this nonsense podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it and got something out of it at least. Hopefully we've been able to give you anything really, even if it's just a light break from your day, talking about football and other stuff related to football. Have a good rest of your week. If you're going to the games, enjoy them. look after yourselves. In all seriousness, keep talking. You know, it is a very difficult time for everybody involved. Take everything that you read with a pinch of salt. Take everything that you hear with a pinch of salt. Keep supporting the team, and come on, you ones.
So lucky I didn't mention that hip